All right, let's dive in. Tonight we're headed to the desert back in 97. The Phoenix Lights. We've got a pretty detailed account of what went down that night. And get this, some connections to other sightings too, like the Lubbock Lights. That was decades earlier.
What I think makes this deep dive so interesting is it goes beyond the whole was it aliens or not question. We're really going to be looking at what these sightings might tell us about some pretty advanced technology, stuff we might not even fully get yet.
Okay, so paint us a picture. It's March 13th, around 10 p.m. in Phoenix, Arizona, and thousands of people, not just a handful, we're talking maybe tens of thousands, start seeing these weird lights up in the sky. And these weren't just your typical blink and you miss it UFOs either. This was a massive event.
Oh yeah, and right off the bat, the usual suspects get ruled out. Helicopters, airplanes, weather balloons, all that. What makes the Phoenix Lights so interesting is just how many people saw it, and the footage too.
Right. There's this video of 9 lights appearing and disappearing over like 3 minutes. They're not zipping across the sky or anything. They kind of just hover, fade in and out. It's not like any aircraft formation you'd expect.
And that footage was analyzed by pros
Hmm.
using photogrammetry and all that. And it seems like those lights disappeared behind this mountain range. And guess what? There's a military base right there.
Just a coincidence.
Maybe. But then there's how the Arizona government reacted to the whole thing. Let's just say it wasn't exactly reassuring.
Yeah, what was it they said?
They held this press conference where they basically just laughed it off, blamed it on flares. They even had some guy come out in an alien costume. Can you believe that? It just made people even more skeptical.
And didn't that whole thing end badly for the governor?
Let's put it this way. His approval rating tanked, and he ended up resigning not long after. But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. Lots of witnesses, even the governor himself, saw something else earlier that night. A gigantic V-shaped craft with 5 lights on it.
Wait, are you serious? The governor saw this thing too?
He did, and he later said he was told to keep quiet about it. But what's really crazy is the size of this thing. Witnesses said it was anywhere from 500 to 1,500 meters wide.
Yeah.
Now, that's bigger than any aircraft on Earth. To put that in perspective, imagine something 3 times the size of the Empire State Building, just silently gliding across the sky.
Now that's what I'm talking about. So we've got this massive, silent V-shaped craft, multiple witnesses, and a government response that's, well, suspicious to say the least. What are we supposed to make of all this?
Well, it's tempting to jump to conclusions. But before we do, it's important to look for patterns, connections to other events. That's where the Lubbock Lights come in.
Ah, yes, the Lubbock Lights, a UFO classic for sure. Now, for those who don't know, give us the rundown.
Back in 1951 in Lubbock, Texas, people kept seeing a similar V-shaped craft, also with a bunch of lights, and way bigger than any aircraft at the time. The interesting thing is, it was also described as being completely silent, just like the one in Phoenix.
Whoa, that's a pretty big coincidence, wouldn't you say? 2 massive, silent, V-shaped objects, decades apart. There's got to be a connection there.
There might be more than just a resemblance, too. Carl Hart Jr., he was a student at the time. He actually managed to take some pictures of the Lubbock Lights. Gives us some actual visual evidence to compare with what people saw in Phoenix.
Photos are pretty rare when it comes to UFOs. So we've got these 2 very similar sightings with the Lubbock Lights happening way before Phoenix. Any theories on where these things could have come from?
Well, one theory is they both might have come from Area 51, the place everyone associates with top-secret aircraft and all that. It's not crazy to think that if they were testing some super advanced experimental aircraft, their flight paths might have taken them over both Lubbock and Phoenix.
Okay, so Area 51's definitely a possibility, but before we go down that rabbit hole, we got to talk about the Kurt Russell sighting. Now, this is where things get really wild.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, Kurt Russell, Snake Plissken himself, he said he saw a similar V-shaped craft. This one had 6 lights. While he was flying his own plane near Phoenix's Sky Harbor Airport, he even called air traffic control, but they couldn't find it on their radar.
Wow, no way.
And this was right before those 9 lights showed up, right? So it's all happening on the same night. But here's the thing. This pretty much debunks that whole flare theory, doesn't it? You wouldn't have flares anywhere near a civilian airport.
You got that right. And if Kurt Russell, who's a pretty experienced pilot, couldn't figure out what he saw and air traffic control didn't pick up anything, that means something seriously strange was going on that night.
All right, so far we've got a massive silent craft, or maybe 2, some shady government stuff, a possible Area 51 connection, and even Snake Plissken is involved. This is like a UFO blockbuster movie.
It's definitely an interesting story, and we've just barely scratched the surface. Did you know there have also been reports of similar V-shaped objects in photographs taken of the moon? and even in images from Japanese satellites.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about potential evidence of these things on the moon? That's on a whole other level of mind-blowing.
It's a pretty intriguing possibility, that's for sure. People are still debating how real those images are. But if they are legit, it opens up a whole new dimension to this whole mystery.
All right, we've got a lot to unpack here. V-shaped objects popping up in different places, at different times, maybe even off-world. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to the Phoenix Lights for a minute. What exactly was going on with those 9 lights that were filmed disappearing behind those mountains?
That's the million-dollar question. It's been puzzling researchers for years. The official story, remember, was those flares the military supposedly dropped. But a lot of people who saw it, and even some researchers, aren't buying it.
I mean, flares appearing and disappearing like that in such a perfect formation. A little too convenient, don't you think?
Definitely raises some eyebrows.
Yeah.
And when you think about how huge that V-shaped craft was earlier that night, those 9 lights almost seem kind of small in comparison.
So, are you saying there could have been 2 separate things happening? The huge V-shaped craft and then these 9 lights on their own?
That's one possibility. It could be that the 9 lights really were just flares to distract everyone from the real deal, that massive V-shaped craft.
Like a magician's misdirection trick.
Exactly. Created distractions so everyone's looking one way while the real magic's happening somewhere else. But there's another theory that's even more interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's this other theory?
Some researchers believe those 9 lights might have been part of that V-shaped craft, maybe some kind of propulsion system, or an energy signature that we just don't understand yet.
So instead of 2 separate things, it's all one big event.
Exactly. Think about it. Those 9 lights didn't act like normal flares. They faded in and out gradually, moved in a very specific way. It's almost as if they were being controlled, you know?
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. A gigantic, silent craft that can control light that's way beyond any normal aircraft.
It definitely is. But then again, the Phoenix lights, the Lubbock lights, all of this, it challenges how we think about technology, what we think is even possible. It makes us think about things that might seem crazy at first. But the more we dig into it, the more plausible they become.
You know what really gets me about all of this? Despite all the attention these cases have gotten, we still don't have any real answers. It's like we've got all these puzzle pieces, but we're missing that one crucial piece, the one that makes it all fit together.
I know what you mean. It's like we're standing right at the edge of the unknown. We get these glimpses of something incredible, but we can't quite grasp it.
And I think that's what makes it so captivating. It forces us to face the possibility that there might be things out there, phenomena, technologies, maybe even other intelligent beings that we just don't understand yet.
For sure. And that sense of wonder, that mystery, it's what keeps us searching, keeps us exploring, keeps us looking up at the night sky with awe and curiosity.
All right, I'm ready to go even deeper down this rabbit hole. Let's talk about those lunar and satellite images you mentioned. Is there actually photographic evidence of these V-shaped objects outside of Earth?
Well, now things get even more speculative. The images are definitely real. They show what look like similar V-shaped structures on the moon and even in orbit around Earth. But whether those are actual craft, natural formations, or just weird things in the images, that's still up for debate.
So we're in the interesting but not conclusive zone.
For now, yeah. But even if those images turn out to be nothing more than tricks of light and shadow, the fact that they exist at all just adds to how weird this whole UFO thing is. It's almost like this V-shape has become a recurring theme, showing up in different places at different times, even across different time periods.
It's like they're trying to tell us something, leaving clues for us to follow, hinting at something much stranger than we ever imagined.
And that, I think, is what makes this whole topic so endlessly fascinating. It reminds us that there are still mysteries out there, questions that science can't answer yet, and possibilities that we can only begin to imagine. You know what's always stuck with me about these V-shaped objects? It's their size. We're not talking about some tiny light zipping around. These things are massive. Some people even said they were like aircraft carriers in the sky.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine something that big moving without any sound. I mean, even our biggest planes are super loud, right?
Exactly. And that silence is a key detail because it suggests they're using technology way beyond anything we have right now. Think about it. To move something that huge without any sound, no engines roaring or anything, with our current understanding of physics, it's almost impossible.
So are we talking about some kind of super advanced propulsion system then?
That's one possibility. There's some really interesting theories out there, like some researchers are looking into things like anti-gravity propulsion, Or maybe they're manipulating electromagnetic fields somehow. These are still pretty much just theories. But they could explain how something so big could move so silently and effortlessly.
Okay, I'm trying to keep an open mind here, but anti-gravity, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right?
Huh.
But remember, what seems like science fiction today could be totally normal tomorrow. Think about all the stuff we have now that would have seemed impossible a few decades ago. Smartphones, the internet, self-driving cars, all that.
You're right, we are constantly pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
And that's what's so exciting about these UFO sightings, especially ones like Phoenix and Lubbock. They make us question everything we thought we knew. They make us consider the possibility that there might be other civilizations out there, civilizations that are way ahead of us technologically.
Okay, so let's say for a minute that's true. There's a civilization out there with super advanced tech. What would that mean for us?
Well, first of all, it would mean we're not alone in the universe.
Yeah.
There are other intelligent beings out there, beings who've figured out stuff that we can't even comprehend. It could also mean that our potential for technological advancement is way bigger than we ever thought.
It's kind of exciting and scary at the same time, isn't it? Exciting because of all the possibilities, but also scary because it shows us how much we don't know.
Definitely. It's a humbling thought, but it also reminds us that there's so much more to learn and discover out there. Who knows, maybe one day we'll be the ones developing those impossible technologies.
I hope so. Speaking of things we're still trying to figure out, let's go back to those lunar and satellite images we talked about. What are we actually looking at in those pictures?
So in those images, we see what look like V-shaped structures, very similar to the ones seen in Phoenix and Lubbock. They've been spotted on the moon, in orbit around Earth, even near the sun.
Wait, are you serious? Near the sun? That's a big leap, isn't it? Are we saying these things might not just be visiting Earth, but maybe they're operating throughout our solar system?
It's definitely a big leap, and that's why we got to be careful. Those images are pretty grainy, often taken from far away, and they're open to interpretation. There are people who say those could just be natural formations. Or maybe they're just weird things in the images.
Yeah.
Or even hoaxes.
So how do we know what's real and what's not? What are the experts looking for when they analyze these images?
Well, a few things. First, they look for consistency. Do they see the same object in multiple images, taken from different angles or at different times? If they do, that's a good sign it's not just some random thing.
So they're looking for patterns that suggest something real is there, not just some photographic fluke.
Exactly. They also look for features that are hard to explain as natural formations. Things like really sharp angles, perfect symmetry, or materials that don't look like anything in the surrounding environment.
What about those images near the sun? Those seem especially strange. What could possibly survive in an environment like that?
That's a really good question. And it definitely pushes the limits of what we understand right now. Some people think those objects might be using the sun's energy somehow, maybe as fuel or a way to move around.
Like some kind of solar-powered spaceship.
Exactly. It's a cool idea that's been explored in science fiction, but who knows? Maybe it's not as far-fetched as we think.
If these things are real and they're hanging out near the sun, that means they've got technology that's just mind-blowing. I mean, the sun's environment is incredibly harsh.
Yeah, the temperatures are insane. There's a ton of radiation, and the gravity is super strong. To operate in that kind of environment would take materials and technology way beyond anything we've ever created.
So we're back to the idea of a civilization with technology that's way more advanced than ours. But if that's the case, why are they here? What's their goal?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And unfortunately, we just don't know for sure. Some people think they might be watching us, studying our planet and our civilization. Others think they might be looking for resources. Or maybe they're trying to establish a presence in our solar system.
Or maybe they're just space tourists checking out the sights.
Maybe. You never know. But seriously, the purpose of these objects, assuming they are real, remains a total mystery.
It's a mystery that's been fascinating people for a long time. From ancient cave paintings to modern-day UFO sightings, we've always been intrigued by the idea of what might be out there.
It's part of what makes us human, don't you think? To look up at the stars and wonder if we're alone, to imagine other worlds and other beings.
It's easy to get lost in all the speculation and theories, but at the end of the day, what really matters is the evidence. What do we actually know for sure based on what we've seen and heard?
Well, we know for sure that there have been a lot of credible UFO sightings by regular people and military personnel. We know that some of these sightings can't be explained by normal things, which suggests that maybe they're using technology beyond what we understand. And we know that the evidence even though it's often unclear and open to different interpretations, deserves more investigation.
So the search for answers goes on, but in the meantime, what can our listeners do if they want to learn more about this? Where can they go to find more information?
There's a lot of great stuff online and in libraries. Organizations like MUFON and UFORCE, they collect and analyze UFO reports from all over the world. There are also tons of books, documentaries, and podcasts on this topic. They offer all sorts of different perspectives and insights.
I'm sure our listeners are already familiar with those resources, but are there any lesser known places you'd recommend?
If you're interested in the history of UFO sightings, I'd recommend checking out the Project Blue Book archives. Those are declassified government documents. From a U.S. Air Force study on UFOs that they did from 1952 to 1969, they've got tons of information in there. Witness testimonies, photographs, analysis of different sightings.
That sounds like a deep dive in itself. What about resources for people who want to understand the science behind some of these theories?
There are a bunch of books and articles out there, written by physicists and engineers. They talk about things like advanced propulsion systems, anti-gravity, and how space-time could be manipulated. I'd recommend checking out authors like Mikio Kaku, Paul Davies, and Nick Cook.
Great suggestions. We've covered a lot of ground here. But it feels like we've only just scratched the surface. There's still so much we don't know about these V-shaped objects, where they come from, what they're doing here, what they're capable of.
Totally agree. And that's what makes it so amazing, right? The mystery is still there. It makes us want to keep exploring, keep asking questions, to keep looking up at the night sky with wonder and a sense of possibility.
Well said. For our listeners who want to dive even deeper into this, we'll be sharing a list of resources on our website, along with some questions to get you thinking.
And who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will be the one to finally crack the code and figure out what these mysterious V-shaped objects are all about.
That would be incredible. All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to talk about one last piece of this puzzle, the psychological and cultural impact of UFO sightings. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back. We've been talking about those V-shaped UFOs, from the Phoenix Lights to those pictures on the moon. It seems like we're dealing with some seriously advanced tech here. If these objects are what we think they are,
And the implications of that are huge, not just for science, but for our whole culture. Imagine how different things would be if we knew for sure we weren't alone in the universe, that there were other civilizations out there, civilizations that could do things we can only dream of.
it's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it?
Right.
We've always thought of humans as the most intelligent beings in the universe. Yeah, that's been the dominant idea for a long time. But these UFO sightings, especially the ones that we can't explain, they challenge that whole idea. They make us ask, what if we're not as special as we thought? What if we're not alone?
I think that's what makes this topic so fascinating. And for some people, kind of scary. It makes us question everything we thought we knew about the universe.
Exactly. It creates this conflict in our minds. And it's interesting to see how that conflict plays out in our culture.
So how has this idea of UFOs and aliens shaped our culture? I mean, it's everywhere. Movies, TV shows, conspiracy theories, even religion.
It's had a huge impact. Think about all those classic sci-fi movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still or Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Those movies explore our fears and hopes about meeting aliens. They show us how worried we are about being invaded, but also how much we want to connect with other intelligent beings.
And it's not just science fiction. UFOs have become part of our legends and myths, haven't they? There are so many stories about alien abductions, government cover-ups, secret bases like Area 51.
Oh, definitely. Those stories tap into our deepest fears about the unknown. They also show how much we distrust those in power.
And then there's the whole spiritual side of it, too. Some people think UFOs are proof of higher beings, like angels or even gods.
Yeah, that connects to our need to find meaning and purpose in the universe. For some people, the idea that we're not alone, that there might be other intelligent life out there, gives them hope.
So it seems like the idea of UFOs and aliens is more than just a scientific puzzle. It touches on some of our most basic fears, hopes, and beliefs.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a reflection of what it means to be human, our constant search for meaning and understanding in a universe that often seems so big and confusing.
It's amazing how differently people react to UFO sightings. Some people are scared, some are excited, some are skeptical, and some don't seem to care at all. Why do you think that is?
It probably comes down to how those sightings challenge what people already believe. If someone already believes in aliens, a UFO sighting might feel like proof, like their beliefs are finally being confirmed. But if someone's really skeptical, they might just dismiss the same sighting as a hoax, or say it was just something natural that was misinterpreted.
So it's not just about the evidence itself, it's about how that evidence fits with what we already believe.
Exactly. We all see the world through our own lenses, and those lenses shape how we react to new information, especially information that challenges our assumptions.
That's a great point. And it makes me think about how the media covers UFOs. I mean, they often make these stories sound really sensational, don't they? They focus on the most dramatic and unbelievable parts.
It's true, and that can really affect how the public sees UFOs. When the media treats UFO sightings like entertainment, like something to laugh at, it makes it harder to take them seriously. It discourages real investigation and critical thinking. But when the media covers them in a more balanced and thoughtful way, it can encourage people to be curious and open-minded.
So it's important to be careful about where we get our information from, to think critically about the sources, and not jump to conclusions.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most important things we can learn from all of this. When it comes to UFOs and the possibility of aliens, there are way more questions than answers. But that's okay. The mystery is part of what makes it so interesting.
I couldn't agree more. The mystery is what keeps us hooked, what sparks our imagination, what pushes us to explore the unknown. And who knows, maybe someday we'll have all the answers. But for now, the journey is just as important as the destination.
Well said. I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. The universe is vast and full of mysteries, and it's our job to explore those mysteries with open minds and a sense of wonder.
That's it for this deep dive, everyone. We've explored the Phoenix Lights, the Lubbock Lights, and some truly mind-blowing possibilities. But the question of what these objects really are remains a mystery. So keep looking up and never stop questioning the unknown. Until next time.